lend themselves to being solved by use of these low-cost, easy-to-implement technology. And then the second gate is a full run on how do you actually implement it.
We all know that being a reporter is dangerous work in certain parts of the world. Because of those reasons, that the U.S. mission to the United Nations decided to have as our thematic in the month of July, as part of the rotating presidency of the Security Council, the protection of journalists in conflict zones.
You know, this is polling. This is real-time polling with bodies. Okay. So we ask a question, and if you strongly agree, you move to that end. If you strongly disagree, you move to that end. And if you're completely ambivalent, you stay on the star in the middle. I agree.
Wow.
Citizen journalists are not real journalists. Agree down here, disagree down here. Man, the whole building is going to tip over.
Well,
yeah, exactly. I agree that they are not journalists because it's a kind of contribution. I mean, especially in Egypt, I'm from Egypt, and we, the citizen journalists, they are playing a big role, but they are playing a big role to provide the other journalists, the real journalists, with information, with material, but nothing more than that.
I think that the difference of a good citizen journalist and a bad citizen journalist and a good journalist and a bad journalist is to follow the ethical principles of journalism.
It depends, are you a recognized citizen journalist or not? How to prove that your sources are right or not. So
each of these tables, you have somebody who has a really sticky story about how technology can help you. This is 5 minutes per presentation. Then we'll give a countdown, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then you'll hear the cowbell. When you hear the cowbell, move to the next section.
You can start to do things like plot the course of the picture taker or the videographer.
So here you have the name of your candidates, click on pie chart, and you have
links that people on our Egypt list have shared for the past 24 hours that are trending.
This is an interesting way of trying to confirm stories.
so that information has the potential to get in recognized and she had it encrypted in the artist. She had sent it over to her
without having to actually associate it with an email address.
Where let's say we have journalists in Syria who are in conflict. They want to send some information, but they can encode the whole thing in 1, 2s, and 3s and just send a text, and everybody else will see it differently as text.
It's been really useful so far to learn about a lot of the tools that are available to journalists, and I'm especially impressed by how many of them are free and open source.
So my portion of the session is going to be on verification of social media content, so user-generated content.
The session is going to really focus on how to be a safe and effective and ethical video journalist and documenter.
We'll show you how you can quickly and easily use our platform to take your data, visualize it, and start sharing it with the world.
So it's been a great morning at TechCamp. Really interesting for me. I'm here as one of the trainers and one of the technologists. But for me, what's quite interesting is at the coffee break or at lunch break, I'm finding out about some amazing technologies from the other people at the training session.
So actually what I find very interesting is the double checking, the sources and everything of the information you got. You have always to be aware where is this coming from.
One of the biggest problems for me and my team are, well, actually two. How do we get that content from the field back to our office safely? This has come up time and time again. And also, how to stay safe doing it.
Things that we can take back, that we can teach people. It's been a lifelong, I would say, an inspiration for me to work with some of the people here. I've only heard of them. I'm meeting them for the first time. Some of my professors have already showed us, these people's work. So it was quite amazing to be in the same room as them, to ask them questions, to learn from them.
And one of the challenges that we face in conflict zone or war zones is how do we verify information? How do we make sure that the story we get from the ground is accurate? And because, as I said, people lie all the time. And so there is technological tools that we can use, such as social media, YouTube, to actually try to confirm a story from what we get on the ground.
Yeah, how can you keep yourself safe when you're tweeting or putting anything on the internet, and keep like the bad guys from showing up at your front door?
We undertake some big obligations, ethical obligations, to report well and not further harm those folks. And at the same time, we undertake some obligations to ourselves. How do we keep ourselves from being psychologically injured?
About the rising number of attacks against journalists, local and foreign, over the last 10 years, and what are some strategies that we can do and others can do in order to mitigate this increasing threat?
It's interesting that even despite all the technology and tools to verify, metadata around video content and its accuracy, there's still a lot of people facing fundamental reporting questions.
To visualize data in a very simple way.
What it comes down to is we're looking at different ways to protect your identity, to protect the identity of your sources, and it's frustrating to see the number of ways that somebody could be, that your identity could be compromised.
I've covered conflict, and I've been one of those reporters who have been caught up in situations where I couldn't help myself or find help. So interacting with people who have had a similar experience or who are dealing with the same experience, the same problems, helped me come to terms with some of the questions that I've been asking myself.
So this is a great day, the 24th TechCamp, the second one in the US, and it's really been fantastic to see journalists and people who know how to use technology that helps journalists to be actually safer in conflict zones. We're halfway through the TechCamp, and I'm really excited to see what comes out of it come tomorrow. Look at the language that we're looking for. It starts with how can I, how do we? That's the kind of language that we're looking for coming out of your groups for a problem definition. What you'll do is you'll sign up for only one problem that we will have laid out there, and you'll spend the day moving from, at some points, depending on the level of the challenge, actual implementation where you'll start thinking about how do we lay this out, to, if at the very least, having a glide path to who's going to do it, what are the resources required, who has the lead on it, what's the next steps. And we'll do also a more in-depth pitch like we did today for each group. We need somebody with technological skills and people who understand and have lived the problem.
That we've decided to address is the problem of verifying visual content that comes from social media.
The problem that we were dealing with was trauma related to journalists and also people who work with journalists in conflict situations.
There are a wide range of existing organisations, both at international level and national level, who advocate on behalf of journalists who have been subject to different kinds of violence.
To train too many people at a time, thousands of people at a time, in order to learn digital and physical security protocols.
So while we love to kind of help organize tech camps, we also can be, virtual advisors. If you want to put one on, or you have a group that wants to use this tool, it's open source. We try to document it as well as possible, and increasingly there's this large population of trainers and people who've been to it. So, we have no pride of ownership of this. Free to be ripped off and used in so much easy way. Good.